tutorial will be about updating a Drupal 8 website. I have placed an older version of Sidecat, my custom Drupal distribution, on my local server, and I will be updating it. Drupal 8 is different from Drupal 7 in quite a big way. If you look at the folder of Drupal 8, you can see that they have such folders as core and vendor. In some Drupal 8 versions, vendor folder is one level up, but in most cases, like when you download Drupal from the Drupal.org website, you will see that vendor is in the root folder. So the root folder is the one that has index.php. So if you have index.php and vendor folder and core folder all together, this is one scenario. And if you have the vendor folder one level up somewhere here, together with Drush and web and stuff, then it's another scenario. They are just different types of setups. You need to identify where Composer JSON is located. Drupal 8 has a dependency on Composer, and I call it an unofficial dependency because it's not listed on Drupal.org. But Drupal itself and many contributed modules, they take use of Composer, and you cannot install them properly without using Composer. Composer is a dependency manager. It installs and tracks versions of libraries, of PHP libraries which are installed. So the Composer JSON file is just a listing of dependencies, versions, and some other settings in JSON format. So now, I just want to warn you that if you take a Drupal website that runs on Composer, with Composer, and you try to just update it manually, download the modules, update the core, and stuff like that, you will have problems. Your site will not run. And the reason why is because Drupal 8 uses OOP, Object-Oriented Programming, and it loads the libraries. Like in the vendor folder, you can see those different libraries. Actually, those 99% of those libraries are not a part of Drupal. They are out there in the internet, and Drupal uses them. Like PHP Mailer, some of them are part of Symfony. And here's also Symfony itself, and Drupal only is a part of it. And here is a Drush also. So in order to correctly load those libraries, it has an autoload PHP file. And autoload PHP file, it references the Composer library, autoload PHP file, autoload real, I think it's called, here it is. And you see this is the autoloader, and so it's quite complex. Basically what I'm saying is that if you do it manually, you will break it. You will not be able to update this and run it if you manually upload files and change it. So we need to use Composer for it, and this is a big difference from Drupal 7. Now if you use Composer, it can be very easy because Composer just handles it all. But without Composer, it's a hell, and in most cases it's just impossible to update a functional site that has libraries installed with Composer without Composer. So having that said, let's have a look into an actual update. I will log into my site and let's go and see the status, the available updates. I need to update the core and the modules and the theme, base theme. Now in Drupal 8, in difference from Drupal 7, you can see that there is one more version. There is the major version, which is 8. There is a minor version, which is 4. And there is a whatever version. Really, there is a name for it, but I just don't remember it. I call it whatever. So in this case, we are updating from 4 to 5, and this is considered a big update. Not as big as updating 8 to 9, and I don't have 9 here because Drupal 9 hasn't been released yet, but Drupal's minor version, which is 4 to 5 in Drupal 8, means that it's a relatively big update. They'll have something new there, though they will not be breaking API. So if it were like 8.4.3 to 8.4.4, I would be, not worried, but because it's actually a minor version in this case, rather than whatever version, it has a bigger set of changes. And there is a security update 8.4.5, which I missed. Well, in fact, I rolled back to an older version, so I update Sidecat itself quite often, but in this case I rolled back to 8.4.3, just for the case of this tutorial. Of course, you should not be ignoring updates like that, but in this case I will be updating to 8.5. It prompts me to download it, this update, and download the other modules, but like I said, it's useless and misguided. If I click download and then upload the downloaded update, I will break my website because it needs to be done with Composer. The same with the modules. In fact, I may succeed with the modules because they're not overriding the folder called vendor, which Composer uses. But if we do it with Composer, we'll just do it with Composer. The workflow with Composer is that I update the site itself locally, then I push with Git the Composer JSON and Composer log files, which get updated. Like I said, Composer JSON is the file that stores the settings, which are the required files, and Composer log stores the actual installed versions. Like if I say in Composer JSON, I want to install Drupal 8.0 and above, Composer log will say, okay, the actual version is Composer 8 is Drupal 8.5. So it's more specific. And when I pull this file into an actual server and type composer install, it will use this log file to reproduce the status of the code base. Right, so let's do that. I open the terminal and I want to make sure that I'm in the correct folder. Yeah, I see the composer log, composer JSON. If it were a Drupal project installation, then I would have composer log, composer JSON, and vendor folder one level above, and I would need to do it here, but not in this case. And I do composer update with dependencies, and you can look at the memory usage here. It goes up. Composer calculates all the dependencies and all the different versions, and it blows up the memory. Like, I have 8 GB, so it hasn't blown it a lot, but I mean it's already almost 1 GB. Composer has you see how it's going up? It's more than 1 GB now. No, I'm sorry. It's not 1 GB. It has taken about 300 megabytes, about 400 megabytes. So it's like a half a gigabyte, a little bit below half a gigabyte. So basically, if you have on your server, and still going up, right? So it's half gigabyte now. Half gigabyte. Wow, it still goes up. Now it's about 800 megabytes. So somewhere between 700 and 800 megabytes. So this is almost up to a gigabyte now, RAM usage. Composer is known to be a RAM hog, and I'm not 100% sure what's inside, what it's doing there. I mean, you could have downloaded a whole movie, or actually like 3 or 4 hours of a well compressed movie into that memory and take about a gigabyte. So yeah, it's very memory inefficient, Composer, given that it just calculates the versions. But the idea is that you cannot run it on a server unless your server is like gigabytes of RAM. You see, and it dropped to 1.4, 1.45. So it actually used about 750 megabytes for that. So unless your server is very, very rich with RAM, like 2 gigabytes probably, you should not be running update with dependencies on your server, only locally. And what it does, it calculates dependencies and it installs the new versions that it finds. And it then writes the autoloader files. See, it says generating auto load files. So it has updated the auto load files. And now that it has done all that magic, we can actually do git add and git commit, and then we can push it. But before we do that, we need to check that it works correctly now. We need to run rush updates. Now, to run the database updates, I can go and run updates here, run updates, or I can run them with drush up db, yes. And there is an error. I'll try to clean the cache, yeah. No, it does not implement. So there is some error in one of the modules that it uses. And in fact, I think I know what it is. Drupal kernel commands update. No access checked. Yeah, but it's in the page manager Mojo. And I had a patch for that. I mean, this is not specific to Drupal, but this is specific to the page manager module. But when I updated the Drupal itself, there was like sidecat itself, I created a patch for it. I mean, downloaded. This is a patch from this. So this is the patch that fixes this issue. And it's not in the page manager module yet. So what I can do is I can download it. Yeah, in fact I can just go there. What? How do I copy that text? Ah, okay. Alright, so I will have to... In fact, if I were updating it with sidecat with that, I would have had that patch, but because I'm doing that separately now, I'll have to get it again. Alright, so this has already been fixed in Page Manager, and it will be in the next releases. So if you do this same update process soon, like good chances are it will already be fixed. Yeah. So this is this patch. I mean, this is bad because you're not supposed to patch modules when you update. but in this case seems like I should. Okay. So I'll be lazy, so instead of typing patch apply and stuff like that, I think I'll just patch it with PHP Storm. Now it wants to update. Alright, where's sidecat? Here. Alright, so I will apply a patch with PHP Storm. So I will go to VCS, patches, apply patch. And at the desktop I will select the patch. Okay. Okay, contrib page manager, yeah, okay. So it's kind of cool because it automatically identifies what I'm patching and it applies the page. In fact, I could even put that patch into composer.json file, but because they already fixed it, it seems like something that I don't need to do right now. Okay, so now that the patch has been applied, I can clear the cache again, and now it's thinking, okay, now it works, and I will do the database updates. Now, I must admit, I have been updating it for a long time, and Drupal 8 for a long time, and I don't often see issues like that. But issues like that when something breaks is mostly when you update between the minor version here, like 8.0 to 8.1, 8.1 to 8.2, 8.2 to 8.3, and in this case 8.4 to 8.5. So there was a change that caused the page manager module to need fixes. Okay, so it has performed the database updates, and I now can check it out. Okay, so this is updated now. And everything works. Yeah, so this page manager module actually services panels and panelizer to apply layouts like that. Yeah. So this is a little bit harder than in Drupal 7, because you need to know the composer, and in case if you have a problem, you need to be able to analyze the output and see what's happened. Yeah. So Drupal 8 can be a little bit harder to update. So now when you push that, when you commit and push that to the server, to the remote repository, and I will not be pushing that because, like I said, my my sidecat repository is already updated, so I will not be pushing that. But when you push an updated site and then you pull it on the server, on the actual production server, you do git pull, but then you don't do actual update. Like, you don't do the composer update with dependencies anymore, because you won't have enough memory there to run that command, but also simply because you don't need to do that. To install it, you need to type composer install, and composer install checks the JSON log file, and it installs everything from that JSON log file if it needs installing. So in fact, when you're pushing, I mean, in the most of the sites, you will see that what's in Git. Okay, I'll show it here. Git status. Yeah, it has the theme in Git. So in Git it has the composer log file, just some default settings, the theme, but it doesn't have, if you look here, you will not find any modules or core here. So why is that? Because we don't, in Drupal 8, we don't keep contributed modules and core in Git. Because when we type git update, Composer will install them. So this is an actual benefit that we have when we just keep Composer log file. And this Composer log file has actual references not only to the installed libraries, but to the versions of the installed libraries. Drupal core and contributed modules and the libraries are installed by this from this Composer log file. So we don't need to add Drupal core to Git. We don't need to add contributed modules to Git. We only add custom modules to Git. And all the rest, so this also saves some space in our Git repositories. So on the remote server, you simply, no, we don't need that, okay. So on the remote server, you simply pull the changes from Git, then you type composer install. It grabs the contents of the composer log file, installs everything from it. And one important thing is that composer install does not take so much memory. It's memory efficient. Why? Because composer install does not calculate and does not compare versions to make sure that all versions fit. All versions have been calculated on your local computer when you typed composer update with dependencies, and so now the log file already contains the versions that have been synchronized between themselves. So your server doesn't need to compute that again. It simply installs from your composer.log file. And when it does, it takes much less memory, and you can run it on the server if you have it there. Now, we have some of the websites running Drupal 8 on service providers, on hosting that don't support SSH and that don't support Composer. So in this case, we would just have to upload those updated files with SSH. I mean with FTP. So if it has SSH and Composer install, we will do Composer install and then run database updates. If it doesn't have SSH and Composer install, if it's like HostGator or whatever, then we just upload the changed files. And in fact, which are those files? We would upload the core, the libraries, modules, profiles, everything except the sites folder. So it's like everything, autoload, composer log, everything except the sites folder. We will upload to the server and then run Drupal updates, database updates through this, through the UI, run updates. Okay, I hope this helps. I know that this can be a little bit confusing because it requires some knowledge of Composer, and I hope they do something in the future to not require it, even though I don't see how they can do it. It's a background tool that, I mean, it's a command line tool that needs to be run, and depending on what you see, you may need to react to it. Like in this case, when I needed to react, when there was an error, and patch it. So it has become harder to update Drupal in version 8. Okay. Post questions under my video if you have them.